Your kid caused the entire mess.
Marissa!
Your son nearly broke her wrist.
Her scream hit before I saw her. Lily's voice cracked through the late afternoon quiet, like something ripped out of a nightmare. And when I sprinted into the parking lot, Daphne Crowell was already standing over her, arms crossed, eyes cold, the board chair looking more irritated than concerned. My daughter sat on the asphalt, palms scraped, hair tangled across her cheek, while Daphne's teenage son stood smirking behind her like he'd just won something. "He fell," the enforcer in crimson said, before I could speak, voice sharp and dismissive, as if the scene in front of us were nothing more than spilled groceries. "Your daughter shouldn't have been running through the lanes." I looked at Lily, her hands trembling, her breath stuttering, and then at Daphne's son, whose knuckles were reddened. "Funny," I said quietly. "The asphalt only scrapes one person here." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't start, Reed. I won't tolerate dramatics. Your girl was out of bounds, and he simply defended himself." I crouched beside Lily, lifting her gently. She winced, and something inside me twisted hard. "You sure you want to file this under defense?" I said, standing again. "Because my brother trained SWAT recruits for 10 years, and he'd call this what it is." The clipboard queen blinked. Just one tiny crack, but it was enough. If you've ever felt that surge of power when a bully realizes you're not afraid of them, stay with me and hit subscribe right now. I held her stare. I'm Reed Lawson, former tactical medic. I've analyzed injury patterns for half my life. So before you spin another rule sheet, understand this. I can read what happened here the same way I read a battlefield. Daphne scoffed, more defensive now. This is a neighborhood, not a war zone. That depends on who's running it. The tyrant in heels shifted her weight, clutching her binder like it was a shield. Her son rolled his shoulders, trying to look tough, but his eyes darted away when I met them. Lily tugged on my sleeve, whispering my name with the soft, fragile tone she used only when she was scared. The sound nearly cracked me open. This parking lot wasn't just pavement. It was where I taught her to ride her first bike after her mother died, where she learned to steady her own balance, literally and emotionally, right on the old yellow divider strip that had become our little memorial to resilience. Seeing her hurt here of all places, made the anger feel deeper than just a father's fury. I checked her elbows, her wrist, her scraped shoulder. "She didn't fall," I said, low, certain. "She was shoved." Daphne's jaw tightened. "You're making accusations." "I'm identifying facts." I turned slightly, lifting Lily into my arms. She tucked her face into my chest, and I felt her. Heartbeat, fast, uneven. "If your boy laid a hand on her, I'll deal with it properly." "That sounds like a threat," the officer of rules snapped. "No," I said. "A promise." A few neighbors had begun gathering near their cars, watching with concern. Not one of them approached. Not yet. People always hesitated around Daphne. She built an empire out of fear, stacking violations like bricks to keep everyone beneath her heel. But today the cracks in her wall were starting to show. Her son finally spoke. "She got in my way. I just moved her." "You hit her," I said. He crossed his arms. "So what?" Daphne shot him a warning glare, the clipboard queen suddenly aware of how quickly her carefully built narrative was slipping. "Get inside," she ordered him. "Now." He stalked off, muttering under his breath. I turned to Daphne, stepping closer. "This isn't going away." She lifted her chin. "You can file whatever complaint you want. This community knows my record." "Good," I said, "because they're about to learn mine." Her expression faltered, just a flicker, but enough to tell me she understood. The control she swung like a weapon had finally met a stronger force. And as Lily clung to me, breathing unevenly against my shoulder, I looked past Daphne at the yellow divider line, the one symbol that had carried us through grief. "Where are you watching from?" I asked, because whoever hears this next part needs to know exactly where the fight began. I didn't leave the parking lot right away. Not because I needed a second look at the scrape on Lily's arm. I already knew it was from force, not a fall, but because Daphne Crowell was still standing there, glaring at every neighbor who dared to glance our way. The board chair held her binder tight against her chest, like she was guarding state secrets, lips pinched, posture stiff with the kind of anger only a threatened tyrant feels. Lily clung to me with her uninjured arm, her small fingers curled into my shirt. I could feel her pulse still racing. "Daddy!" "He pushed me," she whispered, voice shaking with the memory more than the pain. "I know, sweetheart." I kept my tone steady. "I saw enough." The enforcer in crimson stepped forward, heels clicking sharply against the asphalt. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said, voice sharpened to a cold point. "Kid's roughhouse. If your daughter can't handle that, maybe she shouldn't be in the common areas." My jaw tightened. She wasn't roughhousing. She was walking to the car. The clipboard queen gave a dismissive wave. "You're exaggerating again. You always do when it comes to her." She leaned in just enough for me to smell the perfume she wore for board meetings and battles alike. "This injury is nothing, and I will not have the HOA dragged into your emotional theatrics." I looked around us. More neighbors were drifting in from the sidewalks, mothers with purses clutched tight, fathers who pretended to be busy but couldn't stop watching, teens lingering behind car doors. Fear made them still. Concern made them linger. Daphne felt their eyes, too. She straightened, smoothing her sleeve like she was performing for a silent audience. "If you want to file a report," she said, "be my guest. But remember, your daughter trespassed into the marked driving lane. He acted within his rights." Her ability to distort reality was impressive, in a venomous way. I kept my voice calm. "You removed the yield to pedestrian sign last month." "That sign was outdated," the officer of rules snapped. "And this is exactly why outdated doesn't mean unnecessary." Her nostrils flared, a sign I'd already learned to track. Daphne hated being contradicted, especially publicly, especially by someone she couldn't intimidate. I shifted Lily slightly, trying not to wince as she buried her face into my shoulder. Her soft sniffles clawed at something deep inside me, something that had been forged in harder places than this neighborhood, but still broke open the same way when it came to her. A mother near the curb finally stepped forward. Mrs. Keating, quiet, elderly, always wearing pastel sweaters, stopped a few feet away. I saw him shove her," she said softly. "It wasn't an accident." The tyrant in heels turned with such venom that Mrs. Keating stepped back. "Stay out of this. You didn't see the beginning." "I saw enough," the woman whispered, and that was all Daphne needed. She pivoted with a practiced turn, shoulders sharp, chin lifted, and stalked toward her house. "This conversation is over," she barked. "I'll file my incident report with the board, and you," she pointed at me, fingertip trembling with fury, "will receive your violation notice by morning." She marched across the lot, her heels striking the ground like hammer blows of manufactured authority. I exhaled slowly. Mrs. Keating touched my arm. "Is she all right?" "She will be." The woman hesitated. "Be careful, Reed. Daphne has influence. People are afraid of her." "Fear doesn't interest me," I said. "Truth does." Mrs. Keating nodded quickly and retreated, leaving Lily and me alone again beneath the fading sunlight. I settled Lily into the passenger seat, buckling her carefully. Her eyes were still glassy, her breaths uneven. "Daddy, am I in trouble?" My chest tightened. "Never. None of this is your fault." She wiped at her cheeks. "He said I'm weak." I leaned in and brushed a strand of hair away from her eyes. "Sweetheart, strength isn't about fighting. It's about standing back up." Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. As I closed her door, I looked across the lot toward the divider strip, the one place where I'd helped her learn balance, where she'd practice falling and rising again. It was our place. And today, it had been turned into a battlefield. That wouldn't stand. Because if Daphne Crowell wanted to turn this into a war of rules and intimidation, she picked the wrong family. And she had no idea who my brother was. I carried Lily into the house, her small arms wrapped tightly around my neck. She didn't say a word, not even when I set her gently on the couch and checked her bruised wrist again. She just stared at the floor with that hollow look kids get when their world tilts in a way it shouldn't. I brushed her hair back, trying to read her breathing, her posture, anything that told me she was coming back to herself. But before I could say another comforting word, there was a knock at the door, soft, hesitant, almost apologetic. I knew immediately it wasn't Daphne Crowell. She knocked like a queen announcing a decree, not like someone afraid of being seen. When I opened the door, Marissa Doyle, the HOA secretary, stood on my porch, clutching her tablet against her chest. Her eyes darted around, scanning the street, as if stepping onto my property alone was already an act of rebellion. She wasn't wearing her usual board attire, just jeans, a cardigan, and the kind of expression people wear when their conscience starts outweighing their fear. "Reed, can I talk to you?" she whispered. I stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated, just for a moment, before slipping inside like she expected Daphne to appear behind her at any second. I shut the door, and she flinched at the sound, shoulders tight, breath shallow. The conflicted witness finally showed her internal struggle the moment she walked across my threshold. Her eyes landed on Lily, and she froze. "Oh my God!" Marissa's voice cracked. Her hand flew to her mouth as she moved closer, crouching slightly. "Sweetheart, does it hurt? Did he really—" She didn't finish the question, maybe because she already knew the answer. Lily nodded without lifting her gaze. Marissa swallowed hard. I saw something in her posture change, a stiffening, a quiet ignition of guilt mixed with fear. She stood again, wringing her hands so tightly her knuckles blanched. "Reed, She paused, exhaling shakily. I saw part of it. I was walking toward the mailboxes when I heard the shouting. I looked at her carefully. And... She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with visible weight. I saw her son shove Lily hard. It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't an accident. Her fingers trembled against her cardigan. But when Daphne turned around and looked at me, I froze. Her shame was palpable, her shoulders hunched inward like she was trying to fold herself smaller. "You're scared of her," I said quietly. Her eyes glistened. "Everyone is. She knows how to twist rules, Reed. She knows how to ruin people's standing in the neighborhood. I've seen her bury families in violations for months." "And you helped?" "Her." Marissa's breath hitched. Not an accusation, just a truth she'd avoided. She hugged her tablet tighter, as if it might shield her from the weight of that reality. "I never wanted to," she whispered. "But she has this way of making you feel like she owns everything, even the air you breathe." The clipboard queen had clearly carved her authority into this neighborhood through fear, not leadership. Marissa stepped toward me. "Reed, she told the board she was going to blame Lily. She said your daughter provoked her son." Rage flickered across her face, quick, sharp, then swallowed back down by fear. "She's already rewriting the incident." Of course she was. The tyrant in heels didn't waste time. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Marissa's lips parted. Her gaze flicked to Lily, who sat hugging her knees, a tiny tremor running through her shoulders. "I want to help," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But if Daphne finds out I spoke to you, she'll destroy me. She always does." For the first time, she met my eyes. Not with fear, but with the weight of someone choosing a side despite knowing the cost. "I know things, Reed. Things she's hidden. Things about her son. Things about the parking lot. And the cameras." There it was, the thread, the one that could unravel everything. But Marissa's hand trembled again, betraying how dangerous that thread felt to her. "You're not alone anymore," I told her. She inhaled shakily, wiping at her cheek before it could reveal a tear. "Please, don't let her know you heard it from me." "I won't." As she stepped toward the door, her breath caught once more. Fear still winning, but conscience gaining ground. Her fingers hovered on the doorknob, trembling. "She won't stop, Reed." Marissa's voice dropped to a fearful whisper. "Daphne Crowell won't stop until she wins." I looked back at Lily. She picked the wrong fight. Marissa slipped out the front door like she was escaping a burning building, glancing down the street twice before hurrying toward her car. The moment it shut, I heard her engine start with a stutter, fear pressing her foot too quickly on the ignition. I waited until she pulled away before turning back to Lily, who had curled into the corner of the couch with her favorite blanket tucked under her chin. She wasn't crying anymore. That almost made it worse. Kids cry when something hurts. They go silent when something changes. I sat beside her, brushing a thumb gently across her scraped knuckles. "How's your wrist now?" She shrugged, a small, stiff motion. "It stings." I nodded. "I know. We'll fix it." but I could tell she wasn't worried about her wrist. She was worried about him, about the boy who shoved her, about the board chair who treated her pain like an inconvenience. I stood and grabbed my phone, not to call the police yet, but to call someone else. My brother. Brooks picked up after one ring. "Reed, what's wrong?" "She was hurt," I said, barely keeping my voice level. "Parking lot, Daphne's kid." Silence tightened on the line, sharp as a drawn blade. "Is she safe now?" "She's here with me." "And the one who did it?" "Fine, untouched, smirking." Brooks exhaled through his nose. "You want me to come by?" "Not yet. I need clarity first." "Then get it," he said, "and call me when you're ready." I hung up and paced the floor, once, twice, trying to map the next move. Marissa's confession replayed in my mind. Her fear, her trembling hands, her warning about the cameras. That was the thread. Pull it right, and the whole fabric of Daphne Crowell's reign would tear. Before I could think further, I saw movement through the front window. Daphne, walking up my driveway. The tyrant in heels was marching across the concrete with that spine-locked confidence she wore like armor, stormlight in her eyes and a fresh folder clutched in her hand. She looked like she was personally offended by the air itself. I opened the door before she could knock. "Good," she snapped. "Saves me the trouble." She didn't wait for an invitation, just stepped inside like she owned deeded rights to my living room. The enforcer in crimson scanned every detail of the house with quick, invasive eyes, as if she was mentally cataloging everything she planned to weaponize. "I came to address this fabricated incident," she announced. "Fabricated?" I repeated. "Yes." The clipboard queen shoved the folder at me. "This is your formal violation notice. Your daughter obstructed the driving lane, threatened another resident's child with aggressive behavior, and caused unsafe disturbance in a regulated space. As HOA president, I'm obligated to enforce corrective action." I stared at her, and she stared back with the shameless audacity of someone who had never been held accountable a day in her life. "You're lying," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Reed, don't embarrass yourself. Children exaggerate, and Lily is sensitive." That did it. "You can leave," I said, voice low. She stepped closer instead. "No, I will not be intimidated by you. You can posture, you can glare, you can bring up your military past, but none of that matters here. This is my domain, and I decide what's true." I didn't move, but something in my silence must have unsettled her, because she glanced briefly at Lily curled on the couch, then snapped her gaze away like compassion was beneath her. "You'd better accept this notice," the officer of rules continued, "because if you escalate this, the consequences will be on you. Not me, not my son." I took one step toward her, her chin lifted sharply. "Daphne," I said, "you're used to controlling people through fear, but you miscalculated today." "Oh," she scoffed, "and how's that?" "You forgot who's watching." She frowned. "What?" I leaned in just enough for the truth to hit. "This is a public safety incident, which means my brother is already involved." For the first time, I saw it. A tiny fracture in her expression. A single blink, slower than the rest. "Oh, that bothers you," I murmured. She snapped upright. "This conversation is over." She spun on her heel and stormed out, heels cracking against the driveway like gunshots. I watched her leave. Then I shut the door, looked at Lily, and made a silent vow. Daphne Crowell had started this, but I was going to finish it. After Daphne fled my driveway, slamming her car door hard enough to rattle the windows, the house settled into a tense, heavy quiet. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, curled against her blanket with tear tracks still drying on her cheeks. I knelt beside her, brushing a hand over her hair, feeling the bruises beneath my fingertips, like they were carved into me instead of her. It was about discovery, the moment when the victory strategy begins to take shape, and I already knew where to start. I stepped into my office, powered on my laptop, and pulled up the Silver Ridge Estates community map. Not the pretty version the HOA website showed, the real one. The version I'd helped consult on years ago when the county requested emergency response diagrams for access zones. Daphne never knew I'd been the one brought in. She probably thought maps drew themselves. While the files loaded, I called my brother again. He picked up immediately. "Tell me." "Marissa hinted something about the cameras," I said. "Said Daphne hid things, changed things." I zoomed in on the parking lot layout, tracing the angles. If that's true, there's a gap, and gaps always mean intent. Brooks exhaled sharply. You think she disabled a feed? Or redirected it, I said. The cameras used to cover the West Divider Strip. I clicked through old county drafts, highlighting the exact line where Lily had been shoved. But the HOA adjusted them last winter. Marissa didn't say it outright, but she implied the board chair pushed for it. That's evidence tampering, Brooks said. If the change concealed a crime or created unsafe conditions, that's a county issue. Exactly why I called. He paused. You want me to reconstruct it? Eventually, I said. But first, I need certainty. I'm checking the angles now. As we talked, I rotated the map, cross-referencing it with the new HOA design posted on their portal. That's when it clicked. One camera, just one, still pointed near the driving lane. Not enough to see everything, but enough to see movement. Enough to capture Daphne Crowell's son coming from one side and Lily from the other. Enough to disprove the clipboard queen's lie before she even finished writing her report. I think I've got it, I whispered. You always do, Brooks said. Send me everything. I'll run analysis as soon as I get home. When I hung up, I started the process, screenshotting angles, marking paths, overlaying the old grid with the new. My training wasn't detective work, it was survival work. Tactical medics learn to reconstruct scenes to understand injuries, trajectories, threats. The bruises on Lily's wrist weren't random. They followed a pattern, a force direction, a specific angle of shove. I grabbed my notepad and sketched it out. Downward shove, left side imbalance, backward impact into asphalt. All of it matched a deliberate push from someone taller and stronger, Daphne's son. The tyrant in heels wanted to call this kids' roughhousing. No. This was assault. And worse, an assault she was actively burying. I walked back into the living room, watching my daughter sleep. The lamp cast a warm glow across her hair, softening the bruises and cuts. Her breathing had steadied. She looked peaceful, the kind of peaceful children are supposed to be all the time. And the anger returned, not wild or uncontrolled, but focused. That parking lot was ours. The divider strip was ours. And the clipboard queen had turned it into a danger zone by protecting a violent kid who learned his lack of consequences directly from his mother. I checked the window again. Quiet street, porch light glowing. Not a sign of Daphne. Good. I didn't want her here for what came next. I opened my phone and recorded a log. Time, incident, injury patterns, witness statements. Not emotional, not rhetorical. Just facts. Clean, clinical, undeniable. The officer of rules excelled at emotional manipulation. She had no defense against science. Once everything was saved, I began searching the HOA portal for the latest security feeds. Most were locked behind access restrictions, but one, the maintenance view interface, remained glitchy. It didn't show footage, but it showed which cameras were online, and which had gone offline within the last 48 hours. And one camera, the crucial one, had gone offline right after the incident. Got you, I whispered. The enforcer in crimson hadn't just lied, she'd hidden a camera. That shifted everything. I looked toward Lily, then toward the dark outside. Tomorrow, I would take this straight to the people who could act, people Daphne couldn't intimidate, threaten, or silence. Because the victory strategy was in motion now. Outside authority wasn't coming. It was already watching. Morning light hit the blinds in thin, sharp stripes, cutting across the living room where Lily still slept, curled against my side. I hadn't moved all night. Every time I tried, she stirred or whimpered, clutching tighter to my shirt. The bruising along her wrist had deepened into an ugly purple bloom, visual confirmation of everything I'd mapped out the night before. I eased myself up carefully, tucked a pillow in her arms, and stepped into the kitchen. My laptop sat open. Where I'd left it, camera grids still displayed, highlighted angles circled in red. The more I stared at them, the more impossible it became to ignore the truth. That camera didn't go offline by coincidence. Someone shut it down. And only one person in Silver Ridge Estates had the authority, or arrogance, to do that. Daphne Crowell. Before I could dive deeper, my phone buzzed. Brooks. Talk to me, he said the moment I answered. I checked the maintenance logs again, I said. Camera 7 was disabled at 4:18 p.m. yesterday. Before or after the incident, 23 minutes before, he let out a low whistle. Premeditation? Or cover-up, I said. Either way, she's implicated. She always overplays her hand, he murmured. Send me the last operational feed timestamp. I'm setting up a scene reconstruction with software from work. I did. He whistled again. Yeah, this is enough to pull county interest. Not yet, I said. I want airtight evidence. No cracks she can wiggle through. That's why you called me, he said, a half grin audible in his voice. Before I could answer, there was the sound of gravel crunching outside, the slow, deliberate sound of someone walking with purpose. I moved to the window, the board chair. Her red blazer glowed under the morning sun like she'd painted herself with defiance. The clipboard queen carried a fresh folder. No doubt another violation sanctioned by pure spite. She stood at the end of my walkway, scanning the street, as if she expected a parade of witnesses to validate her authority. I stepped outside before she reached the porch. Well, she said, glad you're awake. We have business. Do we? Don't get clever, Reed. The enforcer in crimson lifted the folder. You've been issued a second notice. For what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She smirked. Hostility toward board members, interference with safety protocols, and lying about a child's behavior. You're unbelievable, I said. I'm thorough, she corrected. And I warned you, escalation only hurts your family. Accept the violation, and this ends quietly. Quietly, meaning under her control, meaning buried before sunlight ever touched it. No, I said simply. The tyrant in heels blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. No. For the first time, she lost her rhythm. Reed, don't make this worse. I've already filed incident reports with the board, and trust me, you don't want their version on record. Funny, I said, because your version is missing one key detail. Oh? The camera that mysteriously went offline before your son shoved my daughter. Her pupils shrank. There it was, the crack. What camera? She asked, voice suddenly careful. Number 7, I said, and its downtime matches your son's movement pattern. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. You're misreading it. No, I said, stepping closer. I reconstructed it. She stepped back, only an inch, but noticeable. You're bluffing. No, I said, I'm informed. Her grip on the folder tightened. Tampering with HOA property is grounds for legal action. I didn't tamper with anything, I said, but you did. Her mouth opened and nothing came out. Neighbors began appearing again, drifting onto porches, pretending to check mailboxes while watching every second unfold, and Daphne felt it, felt the attention, felt the eyes she couldn't manipulate. You should stop this, she whispered sharply. Before you make a mistake, you can't undo. I already made my choice, I said. You hurt my daughter, then you hid the evidence. There's no coming back from that. The officer of rules stiffened. You don't understand who you're dealing with. I smiled, just enough. Neither do you. Because standing behind me in the doorway was Lily, awake now, clutching her blanket, staring at the woman who'd pretended she fell. Daphne's expression faltered completely. I placed a steady hand on the doorframe. This isn't over. No, she whispered, voice trembling at the edges. It isn't. And she turned, heels clicking sharply as she walked away. She wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. But so was I. And my next move would bring in someone she'd never anticipate. The moment Daphne Crowell disappeared down the sidewalk, I shut the door and locked it. Not because I feared her, but because Lily was watching. Her eyes were wide, her blanket clutched against her chest, her shoulders small and tense. I crouched to her level and brushed my thumb gently across her cheek. You're safe, I told her. Nothing she says changes that. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't quite believe it. Fear lingers in children differently. It sinks deep, hiding under ribs and behind the heartbeat. I settled her with breakfast and a cartoon, keeping the volume low. My mind wasn't on the screen. It was on the hole in Daphne's story, the camera she disabled, and the fact that she was unraveling faster than she realized. And then my phone buzzed, a message, from a number I didn't recognize. I can't stay silent anymore. Meet me behind the clubhouse. 10 minutes. M.D. Marissa. The conflicted witness had made her choice. I grabbed my jacket, kissed Lily's forehead, and told her I'd be right outside. She nodded, still clutching the blanket. The air outside was colder than earlier, a sharp breeze cutting between the rows of townhomes. As I walked toward the clubhouse, I noticed blinds shifting in windows, neighbors watching the aftermath of a storm they didn't yet understand. The clubhouse loomed ahead, sunlight reflecting off its large front windows. I followed the path around the building, stepping behind the dumpster enclosure and the maintenance shed. And there she was. Marissa Doyle stood with her arms wrapped around herself, shoulders tight, posture folded like she was trying to make herself disappear. She glanced up sharply when she heard my footsteps. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "You said it was urgent." "It is." Her voice trembled. "Daphne's losing control. She's panicking. And when she panics, she becomes dangerous." I stepped closer. "What happened?" Marissa inhaled shakily. "After she confronted you this morning, she stormed into the office. She ordered me to delete the maintenance log for camera 7. She told me to erase every trace of the downtime." My jaw clenched. "And did you?" Her eyes widened. "No, I pretended to. I told her I did, but I saved a copy." She pulled out her tablet with trembling fingers, unlocking it with the speed of someone terrified of being caught. She handed it to me, and there it was. A duplicate of the maintenance log. Camera 7 status, disabled, 4:18 p.m. Override authorization, HOA President Crowell damming, undeniable, a blueprint of her deception. "This alone could trigger county involvement," I said quietly. Marissa nodded, swallowing hard. "There's more." She tapped another file. This one held internal notes, board discussion drafts, including a section written by Daphne. Narrative recommendation: child approached my son aggressively. He defended himself. Parent is exaggerating. Cameras malfunctioned and will be replaced. Must protect board reputation. My hands tightened around the tablet. Marissa's voice broke. "She's framing your daughter. She's rewriting everything. And if she gets the board behind her, she'll crush you with policy before the county even reviews the case." I exhaled slowly. "Why are you telling me this now?" She hugged herself tighter. "Because I saw Lily's face last night, and I saw the bruises this morning." Her eyes filled with tears, she blinked back hard. "And because I'm tired of being part of her machine." Her body language told the whole story. Shaking hands, hunched shoulders, the way she flinched at every sound. Living under Daphne had worn her down to a shadow. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," I said. "Yes, I do," she whispered. "She'll know someone betrayed her. She'll assume it was me." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Reed, she destroys people who cross her." "Not this time," I said, "because she already crossed a line she can't erase." Marissa wiped her face quickly. "What are you going to do?" Everything she didn't expect. She closed her eyes, nodding slowly. "I'll help however I can, but please don't mention my name unless absolutely necessary." "You have my word." She handed me a flash drive next, a backup copy of everything. "If she finds the files missing from the system," she said, "I'll deny I ever had. At them. But keep that safe. It's the truth." I slipped it into my pocket. "It's more than that. It's the turning point." As she walked away, shoulders still trembling, I understood the full gravity of what she'd risked. The clipboard queen thought she'd silence the neighborhood, but the first voice had just spoken up, and it wouldn't be the last. I walked home with Marissa's flash drive burning a hole in my pocket, not because it was dangerous, but because it was decisive. Proof. Evidence. The kind of truth that didn't just pry open doors. It kicked them off their hinges. And Daphne Crowell had no idea her own secretary had just flipped the entire board dynamic on its head. When I stepped inside, Lily was sitting up on the couch, blanket around her shoulders, eyes still puffy but alert. She gave me a small smile, the kind kids muster when they're trying to be brave for you. "You good?" I asked. She nodded. "Are you?" "Getting there." I kissed her forehead before heading into my office and locking the door. This part, the planning, couldn't wait. If the tyrant in heels wanted a war of paperwork and power, I'd answer with precision and authority. Victory strategy. Number 5 wasn't theoretical anymore. It was in motion. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The folders loaded instantly. Maintenance logs, timestamp screenshots, internal notes, override history. every piece of rot Daphne hid in her glowing red blazer. I organized them into a single timeline, mapping each action to injury patterns, to location grids, to the exact second Marissa said the camera went offline. My brother called before I could hit save. "You ready for something interesting?" Brooks asked. "Hit me." I ran the preliminary reconstruction. Based on Lily's wrist angle, the height difference, and force distribution, she was shoved hard, center mass push from someone taller by at least a foot. "That matches Daphne's son exactly," I said. "That's not all," he continued. "Camera angles you sent? When combined with typical HOA patterns, it's clear the disabled camera was the only one that would have caught a clean view of the shove." "She knew," I said quietly. The board chair knew exactly what she was hiding. "The county's going to love this," Brooks said. "Ready for the next step?" "Almost," I replied, clicking open the final file. "I just need to finish assembling the submission packet." "You're doing the right thing," he said. "Just be ready. She'll try to hit back before you file anything." "She already did," he grunted. "Then she's running out of moves." I ended the call and worked for another hour, lining up every screenshot, every snippet of metadata, every action timestamp with the precision of a surgeon. When I finished, I leaned back, staring at the evidence laid out in perfect, devastating order. This was no longer a dispute. It was a case. And Daphne Crowell was about to meet someone she couldn't intimidate, the county's Public Safety Oversight Division. Before I could finish packaging the files, there was a knock at the door, not loud, nervous. "Daddy?" Lily asked. "There's someone outside." I walked to the window, and there she was, the clipboard queen herself, standing halfway down my walkway, binder in hand, posture rigid with fury, the kind of fury only people feel when they've just realized something slipped out of their control. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "Reed," she said sharply, "we need to talk." "We already did." Her eyes flashed. "No, we need to discuss what Marissa told you." I didn't flinch. "You're panicking." "I'm protecting this neighborhood," she snapped, "and I am giving you one opportunity, one, to drop this before it becomes something bigger." "It already is something bigger," I said. She stepped closer, her perfume cutting through the air like a chemical warning. "If you file anything with the county, you'll paint this entire neighborhood as unsafe. Property values will plummet, residents will blame you, and your daughter will be known as the reason everything collapsed." I smiled slowly. "You really don't know who you're dealing with." Her jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake, Reed." "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." "The board won't back you," the officer of rules hissed. "They'll believe me, not you." I reached into my pocket and held up the flash drive, just enough for her to see it, not enough for her to snatch it, her face drained. "What is that?" she whispered. "You're undoing." She stepped back as if the tiny piece of plastic were a weapon. "Where did you get that?" "You should be asking yourself," I said softly. "Who you pushed too far." She froze, truly froze. Because for the first time since I'd known her, the tyrant in heels realized she was outnumbered. I walked past her without another word. Inside the house, I shut the door, locked it, and turned to Lily, her small face hopeful. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said, kneeling to her level, "we make things right. Because tomorrow the county would receive everything, and Daphne Crowell's empire would start to crumble. By the time the sun dropped behind the ridge, the house felt like a command center. My laptop was open on the dining table, papers spread out in neat rows, injury sketches, timeline screenshots, camera diagrams. Every piece of evidence sat ready for the packet I'd submit to the county at dawn. The entire place hummed with the quiet tension of preparation, the kind that settles in right before a decisive strike. Lily sat at the table with crayons, trying to draw without wincing when her wrist bent too far. Every few minutes she looked up at me, not afraid, but searching for reassurance that all of this meant something. And it did. More than she knew. My phone buzzed again. Brooks, short text. "Bring everything. I'll meet you at HQ, backlot." Perfect. I zipped the flash drive into a small protective case and tucked the printed documents into a folder. This was the phase where preparation shifted into execution. Victory strategy, not Bugger 5, wasn't just active, it was accelerating. Before I could gather the rest of the packet, I noticed movement outside, not at the door, not on the porch, in the shadows between the hedges. I stepped closer to the blinds. Daphne Crowell, the clipboard queen, hid poorly behind the neighborhood shrubs, phone in hand, posture rigid with restrained fury. The tyrant in heels had abandoned her stilettos this time. She wore flats, moving with the stealth of someone who'd decided subtlety mattered tonight. Her silhouette illuminated when she lifted her phone, angling it toward my windows. Exactly what I expected. She wasn't regrouping, she was scheming. I opened the door before she could pretend she hadn't been standing there. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide and venomous. "You startled me," she hissed. "You've been out there for 12 minutes, I replied. "I watched you pace the hedge twice." She straightened, brushing imaginary dust off her blazer. "I'm conducting an HOA perimeter review." I raised an eyebrow. "Outside my house?" She didn't answer. Instead, the enforcer in crimson stepped forward, lowering her phone. "I heard you plan to call the county." "Not plan," I said. "Prepare." Her throat worked. "If you do this, everything we've built in Silver Ridge collapses." "Everything you forged through fear," I corrected. Her jaw flexed. "This neighborhood needs order. It needs accountability." She took 2 more steps toward me. "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to destroy me. But listen carefully, Reed. I will not let you take me down." I didn't move. "You hurt my daughter, then you hid the evidence. You took yourself down." Her nostrils flared. "You think you're the first to challenge me?" she whispered fiercely. "People have tried before. They failed, because no one has the board support I do." I waited a beat. "Interesting," I said. "Because one of your own board members helped me." Her eyes widened. A crack, a fracture in her performance. "Lies," she spat. I reached into my pocket and tapped the flash drive case. "This says otherwise." Her face drained, completely. She stumbled back, not far, just a few inches, but enough to reveal the terror beneath her fury. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "You already know." Her voice shook now, fragile in a way I'd never heard. "Reed, listen, we can resolve this privately, quietly. You don't need the county. You don't need—" "I need justice," I said. Her mask slipped entirely. The officer of rules looked genuinely afraid. "Think about Lily," she pleaded. "Think about how the board will react when they find out you escalated this. They'll blame her. They'll say she provoked him. I can spin this, Reed. I can make this go away." "And that's the problem," I said. "You think everything can be spun." Her eyes darted around, toward the windows, toward the neighbors who might be watching again, toward the evidence she couldn't bury. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You made one the moment you touched the cameras." Her breath hitched. This was the moment she realized it. She wasn't fighting a homeowner. She was fighting truth, armed with authority. Without another word, the clipboard queen turned and hurried down the sidewalk. Not marching, not storming, retreating. I closed the door and reached for my keys. "Daddy?" Lily asked softly behind me. I turned. "Yeah, sweetheart?" She held her crayon, eyes hopeful. "Are we going to fix it now?" I knelt beside her. "We're going to fix everything." Because tonight was preparation. Tomorrow would be war. The sky was still dark when I pulled into the back lot of the county's tactical training facility, an unmarked building tucked behind the courthouse, quiet except for the distant hum of early traffic. Lily was safe at home with my neighbor, Mrs. Keating, who insisted on watching her the moment I explained where I needed to go. She'd put a trembling hand on my arm and said, "Bring back justice for her, Reed." I intended to. Brooks was already waiting near the rear entrance, hands in his pockets, shoulders squared with that unmistakable SWAT stillness. He nodded once when he saw me, no greeting needed. "You brought everything?" he asked. I held up the folder and the flash drive. Every file the clipboard queen hoped would stay buried. Brooks smirked. "Let's get it logged." Inside, the hallway lights flickered on motion sensors. The cold, sterile air matched the seriousness of what we were about to do. Brooks led me into a small analysis room, walls lined with monitors, equipment humming softly, a table set dead center like a stage for truth. "All right," he said, powering up the main screen. "Let's see what our neighborhood tyrant left behind." I slid the flash drive across the table. "She doesn't know Marissa duplicated everything." "Good," he said. "It's always the quiet ones who topple dictators." As the files loaded, I spread out the printed sheets, camera grid overlays, timestamps, injury sketches. When the disabled camera log blinked onto the screen, Brooks let out a low whistle. "Override authorization," he said, pointing. "And look at that. Her name's right there. She didn't even try to hide it." "That's the thing about people like Daphne," I said. "They think power is immunity." Brooks shook his head. "People who think that end up learning the same lesson." We merged the reconstruction data with my injury analysis. The software traced the trajectory of the shove, mapping Lily's fall onto a 3D grid. The result was clean, tight, and damning. An exact depiction of force direction matching the height of Daphne's son. And the missing camera, the perfect angle to see it. Brooks leaned on the table. "This is airtight. You're ready." "Almost," I said. "One more step." He raised an eyebrow. I opened the incident footage reconstruction file, the one that showed the camera going offline minutes before the assault. "She didn't cover a mistake," I said. "She cleared the path." Brooks whistled again. "Intentional." "Calculated," I said. "Cold, just like her." And as if summoned by thought alone, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "Do not submit anything. Last warning. DC." I stared at the screen. Brooks read my expression. "She's scared." "She should be." He crossed his arms. "What's the plan?" "Submit it through public safety oversight," I said. "Direct channel. No HOA interference." He nodded. "I'll walk it in myself." But before he could grab the folder, another alert popped up on the main monitor. My HOA email account flashing with new messages. 3 violations, filed within the last hour, all from Daphne Crowell. The officer of rules had gone nuclear. Brooks read them, eyes narrowing. "She's panicking. This is desperation. She always pushes hardest before she breaks." I opened the most recent one. Violation, parental negligence. Violation, hostility toward board authorities. Violation, unapproved communication with HOA staff. The tyrant in heels had weaponized everything she could grasp. Brooks placed a hand on my shoulder. "Read. It's time." I exhaled slowly, the weight settling, then lifting. I handed him the packet. "Get it filed." He nodded once, authoritative and unwavering. "Consider it done." I followed him to the hall as he disappeared into the restricted wing, walking with the certainty of a man who had filed hundreds of cases, but none as personal as this. When I stepped outside, dawn was just breaking, a thin line of gold cutting across the sky. My phone buzzed again, a new message, from a number I'd saved months ago but hadn't used since. Marissa Doyle. "Emergency board meeting tonight. Daphne's calling it. Be ready." Of course she was. The enforcer in crimson wasn't going down quietly. She wanted a stage. She wanted a fight. And tonight, she'd get both. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and whispered to the morning air, "Tonight, the neighborhood sees who she really is." It was reckoning. The community hall overflowed before I even stepped inside. Folding chairs scraped the floor, neighbors crowded shoulder to shoulder, phones already raised like an audience preparing for a play they didn't know they'd bought tickets to. The air buzzed with judgment, curiosity, anger. Every emotion that thrives in a neighborhood where someone finally pushed too far. And tonight, that someone was Daphne Crowell. I walked through the doorway, and the chatter dipped. People didn't turn fully, but their eyes shifted, following me the way spectators track a fuse burning toward dynamite. Marissa stood near the front row, wringing her hands, guilt written all over her face. She mouthed, "She's furious." Of course she was. The tyrant in heels stood at the center of the stage, bright red blazer sharp against the beige wall behind her, posture rigid, knuckles white as she gripped a thick folder like it was a shield. The clipboard queen had transformed the entire room into her courtroom, her kingdom, her last defense. When she saw me, her expression tightened. A smile pulled too thin, stretched over fear. "Mr. Lawson," she said, voice echoing through the microphone. "How good of you to join us. We were just getting started." I took a seat near the aisle, folding my hands, saying nothing. Let her perform. Let her burn through her script. She clicked the mic higher. "As board chair," she began, "it's my responsibility to address dangerous behavior threatening our community. And recently, certain individuals have chosen to escalate private matters into baseless accusations." A ripple went through the crowd. People whispered. Someone in the back muttered, "Is this about the cameras?" Daphne shot a glare in that direction before pressing onward. "Tonight is about restoring order, and that begins," she said, lifting her folder, "with the actions of Mr. Lawson." Every eye snapped toward me. I didn't move. She opened the folder dramatically. Multiple violations, including harassment of board members, unauthorized surveillance, and unapproved communication with staff. More murmurs. Someone whispered, "That doesn't sound like Reed." Another, "What actually happened with his kid?" Daphne kept talking, flipping pages with unnecessary force. Additionally, his daughter has become the center of unnecessary drama fueled by exaggerations and irresponsible rumors. That did it. The room erupted. She was hurt. Everyone heard the scream. "A kid ended up on the ground, Daphne." She slammed the folder shut so hard the microphone popped. "Enough!" Silence fell like a curtain. The enforcer in crimson leaned forward, gripping the podium. "This neighborhood cannot function when lies destroy harmony, and I will not allow Mr. Lawson to tear apart what we built." I stood slowly. The room went still. "May I?" I asked calmly, nodding at the microphone. Her jaw clenched. "No, you may sit." I walked up the aisle anyway. Gasps followed me. "You sit down, Reed," she ordered, voice trembling. I stopped just 2 feet from her. "I'm speaking." Her breath hitched, not from defiance but from panic. She could feel it. The shift. The audience changing sides without her permission. I took the microphone gently from its stand. "Everyone here saw the aftermath," I began, scanning the room. "Everyone heard my daughter crying. Everyone saw the camera was dead at the exact moment she was shoved." Phones lifted higher. People leaned forward. "And we all know," I continued, "that a disabled security camera doesn't break itself." Daphne lunged for the mic. "Stop!" I stepped back, holding it out of reach. "There's something else," I said. Brooks entered the hall right on cue. Uniform crisp, badge gleaming under the overhead lights. The crowd parted instinctively. He walked straight to the edge of the stage and handed me a sealed envelope. "Public Safety Oversight Division," he announced to the room, "filed this morning." Chaos. People whispered loudly, neighbors turning to each other, the momentum shifting like a tide. Daphne froze. Completely. What is that?" she asked, voice barely audible. I held the envelope to the light. "A county-level investigation into camera tampering, evidence suppression, negligence, and obstruction." Her knees wobbled. "No," she whispered. "You can't. You did this to yourself," I said. Her folder slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the stage like falling leaves. "No, no, no," she murmured, backing away as neighbors stared with betrayal in their eyes. The officer of rules had just been ruled over. Marissa stepped forward, trembling. "I'm sorry," she said to the room. I have something to confess." The crowd turned to her. Perfect timing. I lowered the mic, giving her the space. Tonight wasn't just confrontation. It was unmasking, and Daphne Crowell had run out of places to hide. The room held its breath as Marissa stepped forward, trembling but determined, her eyes fixed on the microphone still warm from my hand. The board chair, Daphne Crowell, stood frozen behind her, red blazer dim under the harsh overhead lights. The aura of authority drained from her frame like water slipping through cracked glass. Marissa cleared her throat, voice barely steady. I need to tell the truth. I disabled the camera because Daphne ordered me to." Gasps swept the hall. She said it was a malfunction and that she'd handle it. But when Lily was hurt, when I saw what really happened, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. A neighbor in the back shouted, "You should have spoken sooner." But another woman countered softly, "She's speaking now, let her." The clipboard queen tried to surge forward, choking on panic. "Marissa, stop. Think carefully. You're confused." Marissa jumped. Even now, even stripped of control, the tyrant in heels still terrified her. I stepped between them, blocking Daphne's attempt to intimidate her witness. She's not confused. She's finally free. That cracked whatever composure Daphne had left. "You think you've won?" she hissed at me, voice sharp and shaking. "This neighborhood will turn on you. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I cut her off. "I didn't humiliate you. You exposed yourself." Neighbors whispered fiercely, their voices weaving together like rising heat. Phones stayed raised, this time, not to record drama, but to record truth. Brooks approached the edge of the stage again, hands clasped behind his back. "Ms. Crowell," he said firmly, "you'll need to remain available for questioning. The county will be requesting formal statements from you and the entire board." Her face crumbled. "No," she whispered, "you can't do this. I'm the one who keeps this community together. Without me, everything will fall apart." The enforcer in crimson was unraveling in real time. "Maybe things needed to fall apart," someone said loudly, "if this is what you were holding together." A murmur of agreement spread like a wave. I lifted the microphone again. "We aren't losing a leader tonight. We're losing a bully, and that's the first step to fixing what she broke." Daphne staggered backward, bumping into her own podium. She looked around, panicked, as if searching for one loyal face in the sea of neighbors. But all she found were crossed arms, hardened stares, and the cold realization that absolute control had slipped through her manicured fingers. "This meeting is over!" she shouted, voice cracking. But no one moved. It wasn't her meeting anymore. It never would be again. Brooks handed Marissa a small card. "You're protected," he said quietly. "Thank you for stepping up." She nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks, fear mixing with relief, like someone finally putting down a weight they had been carrying for years. I turned back to the room. "Tonight wasn't about revenge," I said calmly. "It was about accountability, about protecting our kids, about taking back a community that was ruled through fear instead of fairness." People nodded, a few clapped. One older man stood up. "Reed's right," he said. "It's time we elect an interim board. Daphne abused her power. We let her. No more." Daphne's eyes widened. "You can't vote me out," she whispered. "This is my neighborhood." "No," I corrected gently. "It's ours." And with that simple truth, she broke. Her shoulders slumped, her mouth trembling. The officer of rules looked suddenly small, stripped of titles, stripped of arrogance, stripped of the illusion that she could outmaneuver an entire community. The vote happened right there, unofficial but unanimous. Hands raised, heads nodded, voices joined. She didn't wait for the results. Red blazer flicking behind her, Daphne Crowell stormed out of the hall, pushing past chairs and whispers and the reputation she'd built like a fragile glass tower. The door slammed behind her, echoing like punctuation. It was over, but justice wasn't complete yet. Brooks stepped beside me. "County will handle the rest," he said. "Camera tampering, obstruction, negligence. She's in trouble." I exhaled, the weight finally lifting. Good. Neighbors approached, offering support, apologies, relief. Lily peeked around Mrs. Keating's leg from the aisle, smiling shyly when she saw me. I scooped her into my arms, feeling her small hands wrap around my neck, a grounding moment after days of chaos. "We're okay now," I whispered. "You're safe." She nodded into my shoulder. As the room slowly emptied, I stepped forward one last time with the mic. "And before you go," I said, voice warm, "if you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from." The hall erupted with soft cheers and knowing laughter. Justice wasn't loud, it was steady. And tonight, finally, it belonged to us.